So we're going to go back through some of the previous business items that we need to discuss. So Tess, you have an update on the honorariums?
Sorry, what do I need to update? I was just making myself a tea.
I'm just going through the previous action items that we had. One was looking into the honorariums. I was wondering what the status report on that is.
Well, you've been asking about that, so you're the best person to speak to it. It was approved on the 8th, and when you contacted Louise, what did she say?
I have not contacted Louise. I had asked if you or Trina could.
Okay, and I think I did. No, I didn't. I think anyway. If it's been approved by Sharina, if the checks haven't been mailed, I don't know. I don't know the status of that.
Okay. We'll contact. I assume it's okay if I contact Louise. Okay. So there was a tabled item here that Brad had brought up regarding the member hub outreach work time for the land code membership presentation. I don't quite recall what this was about, Brad. This was something that you had brought up at last meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that was about either. Maybe it was just to try and figure out how much time the hub members had to incorporate here.
Okay. I imagine we're going to have more formal planning going on. I'm not sure at what level, but I will table this until then.
Are the other hub members invited here? I just haven't seen anybody else so much.
I have, yeah, they have been invited.
Okay.
I think you and Julian were the only two who were really showing up.
Okay.
They're not required to come.
Yeah, so
Right.
maybe I'll jump in on, have a quick discussion about the hub coordinators and their involvement. And so the original intention is that we wanted to bring the hub coordinators into the tent, for lack of a better way of expressing it, to make them aware of the ongoings of the land code and gain their general understanding of what the land code means, signing onto the framework, having its own governance over lands, jurisdiction of the reserve, so that they can then communicate that forward to members either of their own accord or when they're asked questions. And then when we have that roadshow, we would, obviously the coordinators closest to those members, they would be in attendance and understanding what's happening. So then it came to be, okay, well, we're being invited to be in the committee and we've got Bonnie's approval to attend, whether it was evening or daytime, and that it could be part of their working hours. And then since then, there was some back and forth discussion about what it is to be a voting member. And these committees were established with a certain degree of formality, where there is a vote. However, if we think about it, there is an informality to these committees, and they could be considered more working groups, because when you kind of put your hand up for a decision, it's really a deciding on a recommendation that goes to chief and council, and ultimately chief and council is the one who makes those decisions. So while it's nice to have the formality of voting and quorum is majority, and now are the hub coordinators voting members, and it all kind of became spiraled into a very bigger discussion. And ultimately, if a hub coordinator attends, they're optional. they're not beholden to have the pen and to be there and be voting. If they attend to gain their general understanding for the purposes that the original intention, then great. And if they put their hand up to say, yes, I agree with that recommended option, there's no harm in that. And so that's it in a nutshell. You're not beholden to be here, Brad, every time and feel that you need to be. We will figure out a way going forward to create a summary, so to speak, on the developmental phases of the land code, and we'll share that outward to the coordinators, maybe even in a special meeting. Should we see that they're never in attendance, we'll need to apprise them in a different way.
Well, I'm definitely happy to be here, to see this whole process go through, and for me to gain that knowledge and be able to share it correctly and, in more of a manner that's, pertaining to how to share it the right way, rather, I like to know about it. So yeah, I love being here to this process for sure. I don't want to miss out on this, and I want to be able to, pass on the right information and get to the right person if I need to, right? Who has the answer or can answer a question. Excellent.
And you have the skill and knowledge to really be a beneficial at these meetings as well. And as the supervisor of all those hub coordinators, is that your title, by the way?
No, just hub coordinator and community outreach, and just help out with anything I can. If anybody has questions, hub coordinators, they do come to me for a lot of the questions. And just resourceful for everybody.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tess. And Brad.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So has anyone had any problems being able to access the Google Drive that has our draft land code that we're editing? Is there any problems with being able to use that?
No, I don't have any problems. I just have a suggestion that we should probably make a document so that we can kind of codify who's using what colors for the edits.
Okay. Yep.
Just so that we have a reference, so we know who's been editing what. Because right now, I have the different colors, but I don't know who's what color.
Actually, if you hover over top of the edit, it usually says who did it.
Oh, it can do that?
Yeah, cool. I'm Dawn Couture, because I thought my understanding was that you needed to have a Gmail account. So I've been using my hubby's, but if I can use my own somehow, I'll talk to Nat and Michelle about that offline to see if I can set that up.
Okay, so if I can hover over the edits and find out who did it, then I will retract my suggestion there. I didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
I think it's
wait, hold on.
I think it's only when you suggest the edits. So if you're just making edits, I don't know if that's true, but if you go to the top right corner, there's an ability to suggest edits, and then it will identify you. And
it'll also looking around here, and I see colored edits, and I'm not seeing a name pop up. So
I had to put our names at the end of our. When you put an edit in, you stick your name right there.
Okay.
Like with the edit, I've had to do that with some other stuff that we're doing with another drive that I'm working with, and for some reason, it was, unless that color code was there and everyone knew the color code or could, whatever else, you just stick your name beside your edit.
Okay. Can do that.
Well, I don't mind making a color list, as long as everyone doesn't mind providing what colors that they've been using.
That'll work. Yeah.
Cool. Do that. All right.
But other than that, it's been pretty easy using that. And I like being able to see the edits in real time. Like, I think I was on there once editing something and I saw somebody else like typing away as I'm typing.
That is cool. It is weird, isn't it? I've seen the same thing on Teams with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like this system. This is working really well.
That's a good question. Why aren't we using Teams for this?
I'm not sure, actually.
And it might be that Teams might be a little bit slower. I don't know. Or David working remotely like you are. I don't know.
I'll have to, I can certainly check it out for next time. I don't know what Teams is like on, if there is like a mobile Teams, because that might be limited to my PC.
Yeah, see, I think the reason why I chose Google Drive over Teams. I didn't really even consider Teams just because you generally have to have an account going with them. Whereas Google Docs, you could just add anyone and it just sits there and you can take them out of the editor or it's very controlled. It's a very controlled environment, but it's also very accessible. I wasn't quite sure if Teams would be quite the same way.
And if you're somewhere else and you don't know your Teams login, you're trying to get it on somewhere else, that's another thing too.
Mhm.
Most of the time, I don't know my login. I'd probably have to call and say, what's my Teams login? I don't know how to get back in if for some reason.
True, me neither.
If for some reason I got
I think
kicked
it's
out of
just a-
it, I wouldn't know how to get back in.
Yeah.
Tess, last meeting you'd mentioned hearing something about a legal writer being hired or something to do with that.
Yeah,
You
so I
said
met
you were
with
gonna
that.
look more into it.
Yeah, I met with that lawyer. There's one in Tiandenaga and the other one's out west. This is a lawyer that's been hired for helping with writing bylaws, is working now currently with Natalie. I said, so who got a hold of you and what's your role? And it's they've been hired to follow alongside of the land code, help us where necessary, be of support. I supplied the current working draft. Told them that past part 3 is a template, and they went that I were happy with that. So I will update them here and there. We talked about the verifier, and we talked about, go to my notes. How do I get out of this big view here? Hang on.
Sorry for interrupting. That was a chief and council decision? Is that who ended up making the decision to hire a legal writer?
It's just, yes, lawyers are typically provide oversight, advice, review, confirmation for writing of any governance bylaws, and that it's important to have them available. Let me just try to find this note. So there's the verifier, but there's also the ratification officer. So I'm going to look into a process by which we'll come to identify a ratification officer. If you're interested in knowing more about that, they're in Section 8 of the Framework Agreement. So it's usually a member, as opposed to the verifier is someone that's third party and assigned or appointed by the First Nations Lands Management Resource Department, which they will towards, at this juncture. I haven't had time to reach out to Cassandra about it, but she isn't bugging me about appointing or providing us a verifier. I think they come more towards the end where they're going to look over all the consultation, these recorded sessions, to determine whether or not it's been a fair process. The ratification officer, on the other hand, is someone that's internal and is a member. And they're there to make sure that the nation's interests are served. So the verifier lacks knowledge of the community, so they kind of run in tandem. However, I believe that we'll need a ratification officer sooner than we get the appointment of a verifier. So I will update you more on that. Oh, my internet connection's unstable. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll update you more on that as I dig into it and work out a process for how we get one identified.
Yeah, you didn't cut out at all.
Oh, good.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Tess. Let's see. Well, that kind of goes to this next part here, which was had to do with wording. So if we have a lawyer to look over our wording, that works. So we had an action item here of looking over a voting member from each hub location. However, we've kind of changed directions on that and created some new voting members here, including April and Ty. So I would say that the recommendation for having a voting member from each hub location, could we just, I guess, drop this action item, or should we look more into this? Yes.
I would say like maybe we could put out a call out for volunteers from each location rather than making it like a specific requirement. If there is somebody that wants to do that work, great.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I agree, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been avoiding another expression of interest call out. I think it's important that we keep this working group small. Otherwise it will stall. And we did approve of reaching out to Nolan Rainville. Did Nolan respond back at all, Ty?
No, I haven't heard anything since before Christmas and or after Christmas. So it's been quite a bit of attempts to reach him, phone calls, texts, and 3 emails total, and I've had no response whatsoever.
Okay.
So our little group is pretty much large enough for us to, I think, handle the workload. Does anyone disagree with that?
But yeah, for the workload part of it, but the voting part of it is a kind of a different thing, right? Like it would be nice and very you know, incorporating of them, of the members, to really be somebody to be a part of this from each kind of area, you know?
Mhm.
It just for a vote, like, so like everything else gets drafted with us working committee or whatever's here, but they could still be a part if they wanted of like going over that draft and voting on that process, not having to deal with any of the work in it, but just to be, you know, involved there. I don't know, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and so keep in mind, this is being brought to the general, like to the entire community every 3 parts for their input.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up is, yeah, instead of including somebody extra at our committee meetings every 2 weeks, yeah, we would be bringing everything that we've done up until this point for every 3 parts. So 1 to 3, 4 to, anyways, we're going to be doing like a public outreach with the not just well, with everybody. We'll be doing the elders committee meeting. They're kind of like our testing out of our presentation and being able to figure out any questions that we can answer ahead of time, and then bringing it to the rest of the membership. So when it comes to community involvement, I definitely agree with Tess, is we don't want to have too many members, because then having too much to talk about, we wouldn't get any work done. But not having enough, we wouldn't be able to get the work done. So we're trying to find that good balance between having too many and not enough.
Totally.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot with people with when you hold the pen, there's a sweet spot to reach. And I should explain to my avoidance of another call of interest, expression of interest. The last expression of interest took quite a bit of time, you know, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and reach outs to people that showed interest and then never responded back. So it would cause another delay. And I think we've got this group where we, you know, it's working, people are attending and can take the time, and people with the right skills to look at this that can say, okay, this is because it's written very high, fairly high level, governance, diction, dry. It's not something that everybody wants to necessarily hold the pen to. So,
I totally understand about, you know, keep moving forward. You know, if we keep bringing in more people, yes, the process is gonna, it will slow down because they need to get up to date and whatever else it may be. Yeah, totally. I agree in that respect. It was just a suggestion and a thought on, you know, if there would be someone there, but like you said, those call outs, they are very seldomly answered, unfortunately, but
You know, your motion to for inclusion, Brad, opens up another question here. So after every 3 parts, when we do a presentation, what would be the window of opportunity for response or for community feedback? We'd obviously have to have somewhat of a schedule for people to have an opportunity not to comment right after the presentation. Sometimes it's, you know, with
we can build that in and afford that. Certainly, it's open to discussion during the recorded session. We could try to stream it to Facebook. We'll see about that. I'll ask Chief and Council their thoughts on that, because again, then it's going onto a social media platform that we may not want. I don't know the security levels of those things, so before I just say yes, we will, we'll explore the security of streaming to Facebook. But yes, we would certainly invite any input, comments, and we'd probably, I think maybe, and this is where we could discuss it right now, or maybe not, because it might be a discussion for later, but is it a one window through Michelle? That's what I would recommend. Maybe others would have a different recommendation. Maybe it's any of us on the committee, so that member to member, cousin to cousin might feel more comfortable than speaking to someone that they know and have known for some time.
And ultimately, can we not summarize all the feedback we do get from a community as a group rather than it being filtered individually? It should just be all, like, obviously cousins might want to have a discussion that can be noted, but we have a collaborative meet where we have a look at everybody's responses, and as a group here together decide, what's relevant, what's priority. I'm not sure if procedure.
No, I
needs to be in
definitely
place.
agree with that. I like that idea.
That way we get a group summarized version of it rather than it just filtered in, and what might seem important to one person might not seem important to another, or what have you.
Yes, I think it all should be compiled and shared back to this committee.
Yeah.
Definitely. And even brought out on the roadshow. If we have comments associated with, we could make them community available at that
It'd be
time.
really nice to have a way of having a very easy, accessible, like a comment Dropbox. So that people could just go there, navigate to it, and just start typing in whatever their thoughts are and send it. That would be nice to have.
That's a very easy modification to the MCFN website, just on the main page, just a quick link, land code suggestions, and it's just one little text box. Tell us what you think. And even then, it's going to drive more traffic towards the website, because I know that our website is not getting a whole lot of traffic as it probably should be.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay. Natalie, can we establish that? Could you? Okay, great. And then I would suggest that the summaries of, well, the comments are going to come in, but we should also think about some sort of summative communication on a periodic basis that gets presented within that same space on the website.
Just like a quick land code update, or
yeah, that's something I think, Michelle, that you could probably handle, to do that sort of. We've met this many times. We're at this part. Questions have majority of questions have centered around blank subject, that kind of summative.
Yeah.
Great.
And after a group summary, a collaborative overview of whatever the comments are, should we not return once again to the elders committee, the elder circle, for possible suggestions of, this is what we're looking at, this is what the let's just say quorum of our community's feedback is, and suggest with and deliver that information to the elders just for further.
It's the elders
wisdom.
council.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
so that can be done during their, like, every 3 section update that we give to them before we do the roadshow, right? So
yeah,
we can build that part into that whole.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could maybe even have just a land code page on the website. I'd like to put forward sharing the YouTube channel links. Possibly sharing the meeting minutes. I don't know if that would be allowed or not. And possibly sharing the draft land code that we've been working on.
Yeah, I don't think sharing the meeting minutes is an issue unless there's those here that feel that their privacy would be infringed upon.
Yeah,
No, I
basically
don't-
just have a website with everything available for whoever wants to look at it.
Yep.
But again, we need permissions for that, make sure it's okay, and then setting that up. I'm not good at setting up website stuff,
Yeah, me
just
either.
so you know.
I'd like to mention
I
that
don't
this
mind
seems like-
learning, just I
This
don't
seems
know
like
how.
an excellent form of preventative confrontation ahead of time. The more transparency and the more we allow and opportunities for our membership to get involved, the less kickback we'll see at the end when we're looking at a final product that's going to be implemented. That's going to kind of guide our First Nation into the future. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
preventative. It's preventative to do such things.
Yeah,
And it's
and
kind of
transparency,
community-
it's just being open.
And it's
Okay, so-
holistic approach, right? Having the whole
Yeah.
community. So,
So does
who
anyone
is our
have
website
any,
person?
pardon?
Who is our website administrator? Like, who takes care of that?
I want to say Natalie, but I don't know.
I do.
So you're like, you'd handle all the editing and everything. You
There's a few of us that actually have rights to do that, but mainly me.
okay, right on. So this would be quite easy for. Okay.
It won't be so hard. No.
So for the members here, does anyone have any causes for concern for sharing the meeting minutes or the YouTube channel videos on the Missanabie Cree website?
Absolutely not. You suggested the draft land code. I would suggest not sharing that until we've got like the sections that we want. Right? So
Yeah.
not sharing like what we have currently, just what we've accepted so far.
Okay. Yep.
So a quick question then, in order to set up the website and YouTube, I strongly suggest be brought to Chief and Council. There may be some issues about privacy, confidentiality, etc.
So who would do that? Tess? I imagine that would probably be for you, or maybe Natalie or Sharina.
We can do it together, Tess.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Michelle, can you repeat that question? I just got off the phone with a counselor.
No worries. So we're talking about the possibility of sharing the land code minutes, the YouTube videos, and a possible draft land code on the Missanabie Cree website. So the public, well, Missanabie Cree public can check it out and look through whatever, so they can make comments. But because this may share some private information, they want to bring it to Chief and Council to get approval for that. So the question was, who would do that?
I can bring it to council, or Tess can bring it with her report. Generally, it's probably better not to loop it in with the report. I would probably recommend just asking for a motion or having it as a separate agenda item. But it could be either Tess or myself, since Tess has been working with the team on this for a while.
Sure. We can do that. When is the next Chief and Council? Is it going back to Tuesdays?
Yeah, next
Yes,
Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay, so that brings us to the parts that we've already done. We don't really have to discuss that unless you think that we should. Anyone? I don't think we need to really discuss what the work we did last week. This week. So I'm going to switch over to.
It might be good to go quickly through each of the parts.
Okay.
It'd be good practice for your summative briefings to go give a summative briefing to Natalie and Sharina for work to date.
Okay. Well, we went through sections 7, 8, 9, and 10. 7 was supposed to be done by Ashley. Unfortunately, he was unable to make our meeting. So we just kind of looked over what was already there. What was already on the land code had it already been edited by David previously. And I believe the edits actually only had anything that was just changing the names of name First Nation to Missanabie Cree First Nation, pretty much. Lawmaking Procedures by David. We had a discussion about when meetings would be held in order to address new laws or amending laws, which was suggested basically having a major main meeting for the annual gathering, just because a lot of membership would be there, but also providing for times when we either can't get together or other laws that need to be created at some other time in the year. We also talked about how these laws would be presented and voted on and ratified or adopted into the law system. We also discussed emergency laws and how the differences between emergency laws and permanent laws would go, and particularly concerning talking about making sure that there was very clear limitations to those emergency laws.
I'm sorry, I'm a little
Okay.
confused because, and it must be because I missed the meeting, or my understanding is that we had only worked up to section 3. Did you guys do like a quick overview and break it out?
We were working on part 2,
Right,
and
maybe
then it's sections, and then it's clauses.
okay. It'll be better when you pull that up, I think, on the screen to see it, but continue on, sorry.
So section 9, publication of land codes and land laws, was worked on by Pam. There wasn't really a whole lot to change in that section. It was pretty straightforward, and Pam didn't really have anything extra to add. So the revisions were basically just changing the certain things like the name First Nation to Missanabie Cree First Nation. Also, the section that I was working on, which was the enforcement of land laws, basically the same thing. It was pretty straightforward, and I just changed name First Nation to Missanabie Cree First Nation.
Okay, I have just seeking some clarification here, and it could be because I missed some of the previous meetings, so I apologize for that first. When it comes to creating laws, the process around creating laws for a First Nation is handled by way of BCR, and that BCR is done by Chief and Council. So like what laws require, like what laws is it that you're looking to have?
We're not creating the laws, we're creating the framework to make laws. So basically it's describing that BCR process.
Okay, because I'm just seeing the open membership meeting, which would generally be a presentation of laws that have been approved by Chief and Council or will be approved by Chief and Council. But yeah, from my understanding, and with every other First Nation that's out there, the laws are created by Chief and Council. And once it's set in a BCR, that is the law. So I'm not seeing anything about a band council resolution in here, or
Yeah, Michelle, can you open up the Google Doc? Can you go to the actual document? That's gonna help.
Just gonna do that. Yes.
Okay. And I don't think I actually have the invite for that Google Doc, even as a reader.
Hold on. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so I can add you to that. So I'll be adding Natalie to this document as well. Can you send me maybe in the chat or in an email the email you'd like me to use in order to add you to this. Preferably a Gmail if you have one, but if not, that's fine.
Did you get mine already?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I can add you right now.
Doesn't want to let me just send it to you, so it's going to everybody. Now everyone's gonna know my maiden name and they're gonna laugh at me.
Uh-oh, what the heck?
I
What did I do?
had a question actually about Ashley, because he hasn't been to the last couple meetings. Has anybody touched base with him about what's going on, or?
Well, he
I
was
have
at
not-
he was at my subcommittee meeting last night, and it was kind of acknowledged that we were all pretty happy that our meetings were in the evening, because for the most part, with 9 to 5 jobs, as is the case with most other people, makes it really difficult to attend. He's still very much interested, but can't attend 9 to 5 hours. Well, he
the
can
heck?
make possibly really early
Okay.
ones because his schedule compromises afternoon. So no matter what, anything around noon he can't make. And then it's touch and base whether between 9 and noon he can make those meetings. So it's just a schedule.
Oh, okay.
discrepancy.
Right on.
Michelle, can
Yes.
you change my email address now? Because
Yes.
it's still Gmail, but it's not the way it's on there.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, it's not gonna. Hold on. Oops, no.
Starting to get a little brighter out there today.
That's good.
Seeing a little
There's
blue
Serena.
today at least.
Yeah.
Okay,
can-
you know what?
I
I'm
can
gonna
see the
have
water.
to add you guys after because this is not working right now. Okay, so go down here. Yeah, so I believe Ashley had done all this right here. He was in the orange.
So can you
So-
take us through each of the sections to give them a bit of a brief on what section 1, 2, 3, or sorry, part 1, 2,
Yep.
3.
Okay, well, we start off with the preamble, which is basically outlining Missanabie Cree's
Principles.
connection. Pardon?
Principles.
Yeah, principles, connection to the land, and kind of like authority behind the lands.
That's right, the context.
Yes. Part 1 talks about preliminary matters. So basically, this is starts off with definitions.
Can you go back up, sorry, just to the one that says land law
Land law.
and definitions? I believe they're in alphabetical order, so I think it's,
Land law. Yes.
yeah.
Right here.
So
Land
means a
law.
law including but not limited to policies, regulations, standards restricted to Missanabie First Creed. Okay, in accordance with this land. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So that, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
these are definitions to the words that we're using in this land code. I believe Cassandra had said that most of these, the ones that were already included, were based on other law, land laws or land codes or other law definitions.
That's right. So we're working
Yes.
from a template, and where we think that there needs to be additions and revisions. So it's important to understand that context, that the template has been substantially vetted through other First Nations and their governance frameworks, committees, and legal review has been completed. So, and that's, I mean, it's, you have to start somewhere in terms of what's important to include here. However, if any of us wanted to do extensive research on how to broaden it, or how to make it more useful, practical for this particular First Nation, then it's open to do so. However, we have to work within the templated context.
Yeah, so the definition that Cassandra Cadeau had made about the making of this draft land code was they had taken the best parts of all out of all the different land codes across the board and put it all into here, basically. So honestly, Tess, I'm not quite sure how to explain the different parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go, why don't you go up to the table of contents? I mean, or does it just list the parts? You're doing a fine job. You know, the first is a preamble of principles, then we go into definitions, then it's interpretation. This isn't definitions, but it's talking about, you know, how you interpret the word shall and should. Meaning when it says including, it means that it's not limited to. So this is just providing that further, well, again, context within which to interpret this land code. So, you know, because it kind of gets down into where everybody would tease it out and nitpick it. You know, if someone is number C, someone might have said, you know, come forward at some point and said, you know, you're using the masculine and I'm a woman and I take offense at that. So they've added in, they said, okay, this is what that means. In this context, it means it's gender neutral and vice versa, to alleviate all of those potentials for issue in interpretation.
Yeah, including things like period of days means consecutive days, not business days.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah,
that's an important one.
So that would be the interpretation, how to interpret this code and how to interpret the meanings of words. A little bit more interpretation, including things like if there's any inconsistency or conflicts between this land code and any other enactment of Missanabie Cree First Nation, including any bylaws from the Indian Act. This land code prevails to the extent of inconsistency or conflict. So I imagine that would mean that the other, like Section 81 bylaws of the Indian Act would be
subservient. This supersedes it.
Yes.
That's why it's important to have legal review.
Yeah. Okay, so this section, land code does not change things like bylaw powers of council pursuant to the Indian Act, any Aboriginal treaty, inherent or other rights and freedoms. Basically, it's talking about what this land code does not affect. Let's see. Provisions for the use of the Cree language or a language in general. Okay, well, then we get into the section about authority to govern.
Yeah, so just to add to that, then this is where we are to date. So you can see that we haven't dug into anything that's too definitive or limiting. It's just the general setting out the frame for which within the land code is the picture at this point.
Conveniently, that's the next section, 5.1. Purpose of the land code is to establish the principles and administrative structures. So once you get further down into the document, to go back to Sharina's original question, there's stuff in there about how the laws are actually enacted. So It says like by way of a BCR, council can adopt laws regarding zoning, blah, 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 blah. That's where all that BCR stuff is. It's a little bit
Right.
later in the document, I think.
Yep.
To go
Right
back
on.
to the original question.
It's kind of right here, actually.
Yeah.
And
Lawmaking
this is where
authority.
it's good to have Sharina and Natalie and Joanne to compare against the existing process to ensure that
Mhm.
the process that's a bit, established already, just so that you don't miss any of those pieces of the process that you would want to have transferred
Mhm.
into this.
Well, it would be really, like, if it's already very clearly written out on how to, basically all of this, then there wouldn't be any reason why we couldn't just copy and paste it in here, right?
Well, I don't know about copy. I don't know about copy paste. We would want to look
Well-
at the template to see whether the template.
Well, within reason, yes. but
Yeah,
I
within
mean,
reason. Definitely
like-
do a comparison and bring in that which is missing that
Yeah.
that you feel necessary. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it should be like the same process, shouldn't it? Like, if you think
depends.
about it,
Yeah,
because
it should be. Yep.
yeah, if you're making a law about one thing and another thing, the process should be the same. So it would be easier to have a similar process for all lawmaking, I would imagine.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's the intent here for sure.
Now, this document is less about the actual process of the lawmaking because fundamentally that's up to chief and council how they go about making those laws when they're in council. We're just giving them the framework to say, okay, this is where the authority to make those laws derives from. This is the document.
That's right.
For Lance.
Well, and at first glance with what we're talking about, I can't recall exactly, David, but you had caught something in the framework that could possibly used as a form of abusing these protocols, where someone would have a say over trumping everything of the protocol. Remember, you made an amendment and made sure that it needed to be addressed in the framework. Do you recall what that was last meeting? Where somebody could trump the policy and under an emergency, but it was discussed in another regard. But that was something that had to be referenced at and looked at.
Yeah, you're right.
It was the emergency laws, right? Because if we have like a flood, like it has to be when you're talking about emergency laws that have to be enacted right away without community assent as provided for in our land code. Then council could just get together anytime and say, okay, we need to make an emergency law. Each of our not saying like current council, but one in the future,
Mhm.
So we
Any
need to make
council.
sure that those laws are locked down so that you can't abuse them in the future.
Mhm.
So anyway, it like all the things that Sharina was asking about, they're all in that document. It would be worth, yeah, it sucks that you weren't here at the first couple meetings.
Mhm.
So Natalie, Sharina, do we have within the policy compendium that exists one that outlines the process for lawmaking? No? Okay. Well, then there's then we have to, so it hasn't been written down. However, there is a process that exists. It's generally a recommendation or that goes to chief and council and by way of BCR gets enacted. Okay.
And 7.1 pretty much writes that out right there.
If you look in the chief and council policy, you'll find something there too
Okay.
on how they conduct and what their role is. I can send that to you if you need it.
Yeah, sure. That would be anything that we can reflect on as we develop this is definitely, I think, worthwhile.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Sharina, has your question been answered?
She must be on a call.
That's okay. All right, is there any other questions?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what part is this again? I wish it
This right
actually
here,
is
two,
part 3, 2? Okay,
two.
thank you.
Yep, the First Nation legislation. So, okay, wait, hold on. Still doing a summary, yes?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so lawmaking procedure and community approval. So this part basically spelled out, well, first off, 8.1 was a proposed law may be introduced by. And basically a proposed law as decided here, well, not decided, but recommended, maybe introduced by chief, council, a representative of the Elders Council on behalf of the Elders Council or a member, representative of Lands and Resources Department Authority, or or Lands and Resources Department on behalf of a member, or any registered member of Missanabie Cree.
Yeah, so we added that any registered member of Missanabie Cree, wanting to give them the opportunity to bring forward, but there's some risk with that, and we wanted to shroud it with the process. Legal will be looking at it, of course, but to give that opportunity. Now, if you go back up just for 1 second, are we not giving that opportunity through chief and council, Elders Council, Lands and Resources Department, and maybe we could add the authority of the governance? Because when we talked about this, we still said it has to be vetted through one of the departments. Like a member can't just come, I'm putting forward this law and it needs introducing on their own at a chief and council meeting. Or do we want to do that? I thought when we were discussing this, we wanted it to be vetted, right?
Tess,
Yeah.
did you bring up the TOR that I found for this committee?
Okay, yeah.
And that has to be approved by CNC.
Yeah, so, and I think maybe we've got that here. If we've got it through chief, through council, through Elders Council, through Lands and Resources Department, and then maybe the other department would be the Governance Department or Family Services Department, so that it's always the notion, the proposal for a law is always being carried through one of the staffing departments or governance of chief and council. It's not saying that member, because it does say on behalf of a member in E, on behalf of a member in C. So we've captured that a member can still be bringing forward a proposal. It's just that they're not carrying that football on their own, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So it's just like they'd rather have somebody else present it for them, so they'll just give somebody else the idea and then it gets presented and brought forward.
Mhm.
If they so
Yeah,
choose to come present it themselves, that's fine. It's just a suggestion. It's still brought forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe F was added there. Any registered member was due to the possibility of any of these other bodies abusing, well, just not abusing, but basically just refusing to allow, just based on like, I don't know, whatever reason.
Personal dislikes or whatever, I think.
Yeah, personal drama. And yeah, that's kind of why this one here was put in there, so that that prevents that from happening.
And I recall this conversation. We also talked about the avoidance of a flood of unnecessary and irrational laws or complaining in that regard. It was to start off by a protocol of whether it was a form and application process. And as long as they filled out an application process of some sort, that was like an initial step to actually demonstrate the importance that it is to them, and whether if they were willing to go with that far, it was obviously, a first step in the regard, rather than just vocal diarrhea, which we're trying to avoid here, right? We don't want a flood of everybody coming to the table, but if they can at least start the process on their own through the way of an application and follow a certain protocol, then it can make its way to various departments. Because I know it's only saying Lands and Resources. However, if there was something to do with
suicide prevention at some sort, we're not the department to handle that. So then Family Services Department could be vetting that application and then see it that way.
That's true.
Mhm.
Because it can't just be us just because it's lands. There's so many aspects to our First Nation and laws that could possibly need to be revisited in the future.
Okay, so how could we maybe put some more conditions around this? Is it maybe related to an emergency or because an application process sounds to me that it still gets vetted through one of these departments and could be withheld. So we're trying to I understand what you're trying to address is if the staff department and chief and council are so corrupt that they don't allow any registered member to bring forward a proposed law that is totally necessary for the safety and wellness of the community. That's the scenario we're talking about, I think.
Well, that could be one of many situations, but there could be other versions of that.
So I
Well,
guess
also
we just-
remember, this is just a proposal of a law. That doesn't necessarily mean that the law has to be, even really entertained.
Yeah.
Because
that's
the
what
vetting
I was
process
saying.
of like, if it's kind of ridiculous,
Mhm.
what people are asking, I think everyone is quite well aware of the difference between something reasonable and something unreasonable.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of process to, I guess, weed through.
yeah,
It allows for freedom of speech and it keeps a democratic opportunity.
Mhm.
okay. Well, we'll get legal interpretation on this and what the resource center says too. Like, it may be fine. I guess, what is the risk? The risk is what you're talking about, tide, the flood. So if that's here, then we're giving the right and authority, the freedom for any member at any time to propose a law to chief and council.
Mhm.
And I guess it would be, are we okay with that?
Yeah. Like nobody's stopping an individual member from going to the elders council and saying, hey, this is an idea. Would you propose this as a law? And then that person on the elders council, or if it's chief or council or lands department, whoever it is, thinks, yeah, okay, this is a good idea. We can put our name behind this, just as
Right.
like a
Right,
second thought.
right. But this F circumvents the elders council and the Lands and Resources Authority. Now you've
Mhm.
got the member just bringing it forward on their own.
Mhm. I mean, and that even makes sense because the response that they want from chief council or whatever, and they are adamant that this law is for the protection of the nation, then they can still bring it forward.
Right. Almost, yeah. Okay.
Did everybody see that Sharina can't unmute?
No,
Yeah, she wrote it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sign out and sign back in, Sharina. Maybe that'll just fix your problem. Possibly. Unless you're wanting to actually talk. If you're wanting to talk.
Well, likely she wanted to share something there, so. Be brought to council.
well, this entire code is
Yes.
being brought to council.
Yes. Yeah, these are just recommendations for the future.
Thing, get
Okay,
together a
so-
whole document and then
Mhm.
bring it to council, and then if they want to make
Cool.
changes.
Yeah,
Okay,
and-
commit and then go from there, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if there's merit in bringing it to chief and council every 3 parts, similar to how we're bringing it to the community.
Tess?
Yeah.
Can you make everyone a co-host so that Sharina can unmute herself?
Everybody a co-host. Can you walk me through that again?
Hold on.
might
Making
be with-
everybody, see, I have control over this.
Okay.
So how do I make people a co-host? Nope, Make a co-host. So,
Yeah, the only reason why I
So
can
down to
unmute
Sharina?
mute myself is because of I'm a host as well.
yes. Okay. Did that help it, Sharita?
Did it work for her?
I don't know. I don't think so. 'Cause
She
hasn't-
signed out, so she's
Okay.
probably trying to reattempt to sign back in.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
when she comes back, just make her a co-host.
no problem.
So, sorry, I'm still contemplating that, that other part at the top, and I'm wondering if we should put that condition around it, that any member can bring forward a proposed law. And I guess I'm trying to say after they've tried to bring it up through one of those departments. And
Yeah,
I don't,
exactly. Like they could want to bring up a law, but they should have to go to one of those people to do so.
at least have attempted, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm. Okay.
So the reason I was saying that part should be brought to council is there may have already been discussions from previous surrounding law creation that maybe we're unaware of. Just that topic, not necessarily the whole section, but to find out if there was any previous discussions on how future laws could be created, not necessarily just for the land code, but it may have been for any type of laws.
Mhm.
So that could have been
Right.
Yeah, that would be
discussion
helpful.
we're not aware of yet. And if that's the case, and there is something out there where it's been discussed, then we have some wording that we can use for that section.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll do that. And we'll bring it back to this committee after for further discussion.
Okay. So then I guess we can skip over most of section 8.
Yeah, I think so. That actually bring us to the publication of laws. So basically, after a law has been proposed and looked at and voted on and put into action, this is basically the procedures of what needs to be done after that. So band administrator keeps a record at the band office of all laws. A record should be freely accessible to any member who requests it within 14 days of the request. I added in a time limit there just because otherwise it could just get ignored forever.
Mhm.
Adding the new laws to the Fairfax or the next Fairfax following enactment to provide for public, yeah, so everyone knows. Keeping complete text of all new laws enacted being posted on a website or the Missanabie Cree First Nation website and in a publicly accessible area of the website. Complete text of any and all new laws enacted shall be made into a hard copy format and made freely available to any member who makes a written request, electronic or otherwise, to the band member or band administrator, which should probably also have a time limit.
And that's just for, people who might not be for electronic. They'd rather have like a piece of paper in their hand because Lord knows my grandmother is one of those people.
Mhm.
So
I
yeah,
prefer
just-
reading hard copy too.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there's the enforceability of land laws. So basically, if any of these laws are broken or contravened, then what do we do about that? So in here, I believe most of the changes were just the names. Because there's establishing offenses. There's providing for fines, imprisonment, restitution, community services, or alternate means of achieving compliance. Yeah, basically investigation. be allowed for. And also the collection of non-tax debts, fees, or charges by a third party.
Does it go into detail on who's making the conviction?
Later on, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I
'Cause that's-
believe that, yeah, I believe there is a section later on where it talks about enforcement, like,
Yeah, more detail.
yeah, enforcement. But that's the kind of thing that as a group we'll have to sit and talk about, because that goes into basically
Yes.
what's Missanabie Cree capable of?
Exactly.
Like, are we going to be relying on the RCMP? Are you know, you can create your own force, or have I believe there's also there's other models. I remember hearing one, I think it was in BC, where they have their own guardians, and those guardians basically work like police officers, but the thing is they're not given the same types of tools as police officers. Like, they come at it from a non-violent standpoint.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're normally called
So-
peacekeepers.
Yeah.
I've actually had some conversations with some of the police chiefs that work in line with them. So basically, these individuals are trained just like the type of training that they go through. Most of them are managed through whether it be OPP or NAPS. But you know, they don't carry guns, they don't carry tasers, stuff like that. They're just so there is some communities that have that right now. Missanabie Cree doesn't have that though.
Mhm.
So I think for us it would probably be through NAPS, and if it has to be changed at a later date, then that would be the case. But we do have NAPS within the area.
Just
that
an
would be
authority
able to-
presence. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
not,
NAPS
yeah.
or the OPP.
Yes. Yeah.
And this sounds
And that-
also like an extension of the Family Services Department in terms of crisis intervention. If they were to do a little more training in terms of negotiation, that's
Mhm.
another arm that would definitely extend to some of this as well, because a lot of the time we don't need the police and to ruin someone's life with a conviction if this can be achieved through negotiation, you know. It's like even my mom has had conversations with people and not just pressed fines and laws and followed that, because it ruins people's lives and it creates a downward spiral. So if we were to have an extension, like I said, of the Family Services Department somewhat, because our crisis team is, you know, it's there, but there's some work we can do.
That's, yeah, I agree, Ty. And conviction is a judicial process. So it's, you know, there's NAPS. Okay, we rely on Missanabie Police or the OPP, but conviction to me still would go through the provincial. I'd be interested to
Yes.
see, like, I'm sure we're gonna, Missanabie Cree would probably want to rely on the existing provincial government judicial process.
Yeah,
But
that's next
yeah.
part here.
Okay.
There are also some other communities where the conviction process is basically a group of members that are selected to prosecute or, you know, arrange it, and it's kind of something that's done outside of the regular traditional judicial system. It could be by way of a circle conversation. So it'll really be up to chief and council how they foresee this happening within their own community. And Ty's right, like a lot of them, it won't even go through the police services. It's just something handled internally within the First Nation by whoever that First Nation has set out. Right now, we don't have that though. So
Right, and
for
the capacity
the
for it.
purposes of creating this, yeah, like it says, provincial prosecutor.
Right, but I mean, like you say, Sharina, it is open to changing it and to changing it to that model. However, it often probably where that model is chosen is probably in remote areas where RCMP is no longer trusted, and where the community has the capacity. If we think so, I don't know. And keep in mind, as we develop this land code and gets ratified, it's always open for change too.
Exactly. I mean, right now,
you know,
if we stick with using NAPS, you know, as how certain things go, and just the main way of doing it until we have all those other arms functioning and set out proper,
Yeah,
That way there, we don't have legs, right? So when this law gets enacted or when this code gets accepted and it's out there, you know, and something does end up happening, they're not looking for this team of people that we've allocated are supposed to be there, but yet they're not enforced.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's NAPS?
Missanabie
Missanabie?
Cree Police Services. And then there's a second force, the Aboriginal Police Services, APS. I'd like to just bring up an example, however, of foreshadowing where things will be going. So if we had an opiate dealer, it doesn't matter how many times he gets arrested and convicted when he returns back to the community with more supply, which affects the community as a whole. Often First Nations don't have a framework of how to prevent that. And what happens is it's like a virus and it continuously infects the community. So I've seen one community, what they did was they had like a 3-strike rule because the provincial justice system doesn't protect their community when it comes to people like this. And they felt as a sovereign nation, it was a 3-strike rule. And then you were no longer welcome on reserved lands if you broke the rule 3 times. And it has to be something that's justifiable. If the gentleman or the lady is bringing in drugs, which are killing people and affecting the community in a bad way, like I said, the provincial judicial system doesn't protect others in the community and allows a person to have those freedoms to re-enter the reserve and continue to do its destructive process. So foreshadowing such a situation as this might be necessary. Once again, I'm regurgitating Family Services Crisis Intervention Team. However, the community I'm speaking of, they bridged that, they bridged APS and they bridged Chief and Council on this community project, which was you're pretty much exiled after 3 strikes. If you can't adhere to a peaceful contribution of the community, you are removed from there. Unless, and with an ultimatum of coming back, I don't know, but these are things that need to be discussed because the provincial judicial system only protects us so far. And we have a
Right,
sovereign right to be better.
Really good point. And I think you could probably establish that through a bylaw, like a subsequent piece to this where you have a judicial or enforcement bylaw that speaks to that.
Yeah, there usually is one.
It's just like a cultural process. It's an old, that's how we used to do things back in the time when we were governing our own tribes and there was, you know, no outside anybody around. Yeah, so if somebody was deemed doing something or you know, inappropriate or, you know, against the law, then depending on what it was, now we do have police, so we will have different situations where we would want to deal with our people ourselves, and where we would need them to deal with them. And we would have to, during those situations, we'll know, you know, which choice we're going to use, whether we're going to use our own people to divert the situation or whether we need outside authority to help divert that situation, whatever it may be at that time, right?
Just example now, because of COVID, people are in and out of jail over the weekend, where that wasn't present even 5 years ago, we're at the capacity. So the judicial system only protects and only serves to an extent these days.
Yeah, and another thing to consider too is some of the people that may be infracting upon these laws are not necessarily Missanabie Cree people. They could be people from outside of the area. So it is important to still leave that ability to communicate with provincial offenses and going that route, because it could be another company coming and trying to impede on the land, crossing over the boundary area. That may occur, and those are the type of provincial offenses that we have to look into, and going that mainstream route. It wouldn't be something necessarily just within the community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean by it's going to be like, you know, whether you're going to go the provincial route or whether we're going to use our own governance route or our own law route to get through that situation. And it's going to depend on the situation.
Exactly.
There'll be a whole other legal code.
Yep.
Codes, and more codes.
So all of that brings us to part 3, which is what we are editing today. Is it okay if I take like a quick 5-minute break with everyone?
Share with me.
Totally. Totally.
Yep. Good with me.
Yeah, yeah, 5-minute breather. Okay, see you in
All right.
5. Smudge my lungs.
Be right back.
What you working on there, David?
Just it's one of those another one of those things where I just kind of started and didn't stop. So it might end up to be another cat hat. I don't know.
Another cat hat. Oh, that's neat. It's knitting
I'm just like,
or
no,
crochet.
this is crochet. I do knit, but yeah, I'm trying to get used to like how stitches look when you do them and tension and all that stuff. So I'm just kind of like playing around right now.
Oh, it's neat.
And
I
then
like that.
I actually just bought a whole bunch of yarn. Hang on. So I got to do a blanket for my friend that I've been trying to do for like 10 years or more now, and I couldn't figure out like a
I
palette.
know
for
what
it.
that feels like.
And so I have all of this here. Hang on. How do I switch that around? Where's my screen?
I don't know. I lost you.
There it is. So all of this kind of like blues and
I
grays.
can't see. I'm not seeing it.
You
Or
don't
I
wait.
see
can
it?
see it.
Okay, let me what the heck? Let me change my view, my gallery view. Oh, okay. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
So I'm gonna do a
Oh.
blanket in this sort of palette for her because she likes blues. So it's gonna be really nice. Yeah. So all this
Mhm.
yarn came from Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Why? That's just where you.
Just where the company's from, I guess. And yeah, it was weird because it got on a plane and then the plane never landed for like 2.5 weeks.
Jeez.
So it's well-traveled yarn, I guess.
Mhm. It has a yarn to tell. Ah.
You're so funny.
Hey, everyone, guess what?
What's
What?
up?
What?
Within a day and a half, I got 21 responses for my survey so far.
Nice.
So if you guys
Awesome.
haven't done it and you're a member, and tell everybody else to do it too.
Will do.
Okay. Which
The more
survey
input
is?
I get, the better it'll be.
I'm sorry, I got my mute. I need to mute.
Guess I could try to make a sock out of this. It's like kind of tubular. It's got an end on it. It's
Yeah.
Kind of small.
Start. Baby sock.
I don't know, man. It helps pass the time and it helped me quit that.
Oh, awesome.
What are you making, David?
That's probably gonna end up to be another cat hat.
Nice. That was cute, by the way.
Yeah, that was another I was trying to do something flat and it just didn't go flat. And before I realized it, I had a hat.
Nice. Is it crochet or netting?
Crochet.
Nice.
And yeah.
I remember learning a long, long time ago, and I haven't tried it since.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. I learned a long time ago when I was pretty young actually. This old lady had taught me. And I remember it being very easy. It seemed easy. Just one stitch at a time.
That's it.
Yeah.
I like the variety you can make with crochet.
Well, now that I understand how to do all three, like knitting, crochet, and Tunisian crochet, which is kind of like a blend of knitting and crochet. So like you can do so many different, like each thing has its own place in the world of, I guess, cooking.
I had to unmute for that laugh.
So yeah, I'm digging it, and I can't wait to get into more. I've discovered that I don't like working with wool. It's very picky, and
It's the fibers, eh? Yeah.
What kind of wool?
it's just like right now this is just superwash Highland wool. Peruvian wool is all right. Alpaca is just too fine for me. But
I like working with alpaca because it's softer.
yeah, I had really nice, very, very, very fine fingering weight alpaca yarn, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do an amazing scarf in this, and I got about this far into it, and it took me 6.5 months to get that far, and I was like, nah.
No. That's some fine, so like
Oh,
really fine. Yeah.
yeah, it was like almost like thread.
Yeah.
Really. And
I did a sweater for my daughter when she was younger. I will never do it again. It made a year.
oh,
Mhm.
wow.
But they last forever.
Yeah, they do. I gave her dress that I crocheted, and she still got it. She'll never be able to fit it, but she's still got it.
Something you keep in the family.
Because she was so tiny, we used to call her Skinny Minnie. She was so tiny, and you had to make clothes special for her. Now she's a big girl, and I don't have to do it. She can do it herself. She keeps saying, come on, teach me. I said, no, teach yourself. You can learn. There's books. I'm not going through that again. I'm allergic to wool. Here's me trying to do my crocheting or my knitting with gloves on. Rubber gloves so I couldn't get touched.
Ooh.
Mhm.
Yeah, I only discovered maybe a couple months ago that people actually have an allergy to wool.
Yeah, I break out terrible. Unless I go and get my shot. And if I get my shot, then I'm okay for another little while. But I just don't crochet anymore. I did too many blankets for my grandmother, my mother's, and all my aunts. You know, so enough was enough.
So do we have everyone back now?
Yeah, I just never left.
Ty, Ross, Tess still here? Yep, Tess still here.
Michelle and Tess.
Yes.
I have a COVID appointment at 11:30 for someone coming here, so I'll put on my headphones and I will do that while we're in the meeting.
Okay. All right, so we can get to the editing. So part 3, community meetings and approvals. So section 11, every member is entitled to participate in meeting of members. We had all decided that that's like not something that needed to be edited, just looked over. Did anyone have any comments about this particular piece?
How do I get the screen share back? I lost it.
Oh,
Up at the top of your,
I'm on.
oh, you don't have I don't have it, sorry.
Hmm.
I've got my computer.
Okay, so I
oh
see
yeah,
that.
David, you're on your phone, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
poking around.
Yep.
Can you turn it sideways? Maybe it'll pop it up.
Maybe try that.
Oh, yeah, that works sometimes, yeah.
Who's
Slide
sharing?
all,
right now?
all the way to the left.
Safe driving. Oh, there it is.
Found it?
There it is. Got it. Okay.
Perfect.
Excellent.
See what you can learn at this meeting?
Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so participation of members, 11.1, every member is entitled to participate in the meeting of members. It's pretty straightforward. So number 2, Tess was going to edit, which was kind of straightforward as well, actually. Couldn't think of it. So 12.1 was every eligible voter is entitled to participate in community approvals.
Yeah, so I did provide some, mostly just some changes that I felt made it more readable. Instead of saying a meeting of members twice, I said at said meeting.
Yep.
Mhm.
Most of it's just common sense. Yeah, that, and then part E just didn't, manner of notice just didn't make sense necessarily, or at least it left it wide open to what are you talking about? So I just said details about how the notice is being disseminated. Disseminated looks like it's misspelled. Yeah, that's all I had to contribute.
Just an extra M.
Oh,
Some
I
in-
think so. I don't know.
I think it's a double M, not supposed to be a double M.
Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be a double. There you go. It's supposed to be double S,
There we go.
double something, but
okay, so well, thank you, Tess. You did me and Pam a solid by editing our section. 'Cause
oh, I thought this is what I was supposed to do. No,
technically you were given number 12, but I'm looking at number 12 and it's just like a number 11. It's
it's just
literally
one sentence. Yeah,
yeah,
I thought there had to be more for me to do, I guess.
agreed.
Thank you.
Especially considering what David took on. So, okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this, the edits to the section 13.1?
No, that's straightforward.
Yep.
Simpler and easier. Yeah.
All right, so 13.2, the notice shall be given to the members before the meeting or vote by. So this is how members will be apprised of a meeting coming up. So posting a notice in all public places, providing notice to members and taking reasonable steps to locate and inform members who reside on and off reserve, posting the notice online, additional methods council considers appropriate, and permission of council.
I was not very clear on E there, like, because if you go back up to the very top, or not the very top there, the notice shall be given to members before the meeting or vote by permission of council.
Okay.
I think I read that just to mean that they get to review the notice, like the posting the notice in public places. So like the council's, isn't it a council facilitated meeting? Like the council's calling the meeting?
I mean, technically, yeah.
Yeah, but this is about notice. Notice shall be
Mhm.
given too. So
Yeah,
Members
I mean,
by-
it does seem redundant. However, I think it's probably included just because let's take it away and say, okay, we've got a situation where somebody's on staff that just came on staff and doesn't know how notices are usually created, or it's all misspelled, or I don't know. Just just that it would be vetted, the notice be vetted by council.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
wasn't
maybe we
clear on
change it
that
to
one.
that. Maybe we
That would-
change it to that.
That would be right here though, would it not? So council should give written notice of the meeting of members and any matter requiring community approval at said meeting. And the notice shall include date and time, brief description, description of any matter that requires community approval, anything that needs to be discussed, other information and material the council considers appropriate, and details about how the notice is being disseminated.
Right, so then
So-
it's, there must be another reason for this, and if, like, so let me,
Wouldn't normally have
So David,
Yeah,
that last.
you had added this?
no, it was just already in there and I just wasn't clear on it, so I just left it because I wasn't sure.
it's also weird that it's capitalized and none of the others are.
Yeah.
They generally wouldn't have information in the notice about how the notice is being disseminated.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like,
Like that
I get-
last line shouldn't be there.
I think
Yeah,
the reason, okay, I think I understand maybe why it's there. I suggest that it's there because it's saying that the notice shall be given. So it's how the notice is being given. It's before a meeting or vote by A, posting, go to B, C, D, E. So B, providing it by taking reasonable, locating these people and going in person, posting the notice online, and additional methods the council considers appropriate. Oh, we've got the addition, I was just gonna say, or that the D is covering what I was suggesting it might be.
so yeah, so like maybe we can just remove E.
I think so.
entirely.
Yeah, I think it's
Agreed.
fine to strike it. I would keep, I would, Michelle, whenever possible, let's keep the
Oh, yeah.
striking recorded, so as
Yeah.
suggested or whatever, because as we
Hold on.
provide this to the membership, it's important that they see what the template said for
Yeah.
their contemplation.
Yeah, that's fine. Just trying to look for the strikeout.
So there is no strikeout.
Oh,
It's
no?
only, no, so you
Oh.
have to go over to your editing at the bar at the top right and choose a suggestion as opposed to,
Okay, so this? No, not that.
sorry, go to your editing. So that little blue with the pen beside
Okay.
it, the word is actually written.
This right here?
No, top right of the document. Editing, it has a pen and it actually,
Yeah.
Yep.
hit that.
Right.
Yep.
Hit that. Suggested. Go to suggested. Yes, there we
Just
go.
'cause
Now
I
we'll
got a
do
whole
it.
list of pictures here that are in the way, so you're suggesting.
Yep,
Um,
now it will do it. When you hit delete, it's gonna show that it's gonna track that change.
oh, nice. Okay. I haven't come across that feature yet. Nice. Thank you.
Is
I
this
appreciate
a
that.
point where we should be specific about when it just says posting notice online? Should we not be specific about the actual platforms at this point?
No, because they could change.
Yeah. And there could be laws or other clarifications towards this in other documents later, moving forward. So say you get rid of the Fairfax and the Facebook and you take on something new, you don't want to enshrine it too tightly in this particular document.
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay, so 13.2. Any other comments or discussion on this one?
That's all I had was just E, like that whole discussion.
Yeah,
I'm curious about what that's supposed to mean.
If you go up to that where that E was, right, it just says like this is the information about the notice.
This?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
trying to make it bigger.
Make it-
So yeah, this is telling you what goes into the notice. So
The
that
content,
E
yeah.
doesn't need to be in there.
Here?
Yeah, that shouldn't be there at all.
Okay, hold on.
The notice has to have the date, time, place of the meeting,
I've done bylaws for some of the other things that I sit on. The description of the matter to be discussed, so that's generally by way of an agenda. You should add matters, because it may be more than one matter.
Matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would even say to put that S in brackets.
Yeah. So it could be one, it could be multiple.
Yep.
Just legalese way of doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I recommend striking out how the notice is being disseminated, because really it's normally a one-page flyer that gets posted somewhere and stating in fine print at the bottom that it was distributed by this way or this way is redundant.
I agree, Sharina.
Yep.
And again, keep in mind that I added the details of how it's being disseminated. So manner of notice might mean something else. And I would suggest that Michelle, as we do these parts, and maybe it's every 3 parts and the same as what we're doing with community and Elders Council, reach back to Cassandra and say, here's the changes, and let us know if this manner of notice means something of importance. And the same with that other one where we took out permission of council. Because if there's some sort of reason behind it that she could provide, we would want to reconsider, I guess.
Agreed. I mean, that's what they're there for, is to clarify these sort of things, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd be more than happy to. Okay, just made a note there for that.
okay, 13.2. That's the same. Okay, yep, just that.
All right, so 13.3, a person other than a member authorized by council may attend a meeting of members.
Just basically saying if they have to have somebody in like Ron Maurice or somebody else doing a presentation on whatever, that they have to be authorized by council. You can't just bring somebody in.
Yep.
On your own.
Yeah, they gotta be on the agenda.
Yep.
To be in any meeting, yeah.
Okay. So informed decision 13. Well, is there any other comments and suggestions about this? 13.3. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
13.4, council may schedule more than one meeting of members as may be necessary to ensure the members are well informed before making a decision on a proposed land law or land matter. So basically, it doesn't have to be all in one meeting. It could be several meetings that discussions can be made. Is there any
No.
comments about that?
No.
Okay. So now we're getting into David's sections. So 14.1, community meetings of members. Council shall call a meeting of members before or prior to enacting a land law respecting community plan or subdivision plan, making a decision concerning any development affecting a heritage site or an environmentally sensitive property, enacting a land law respecting environmental assessment and protection, enacting a land law respecting the transfer and assignment of rights and interests in the Missanabie First Nation land. Missanabie Cree.
Is there a definition for heritage site?
Yes.
There is, David?
Yes, I believe there is one in the definitions list there.
You can look that up.
Yeah, it's worth taking a look at. It's worth taking a look at it, just to ensure it kind of encompasses all that.
We can probably pull from the Heritage Site Act. for
Most
wording for
likely,
that.
it's not in here.
Nope, it is not.
So,
But there is definitely wording out there and available that we can utilize for.
Oh, yeah.
that type of
right, let's pull it into the definitions though, because we want it to
Okay, so-
extend to archaeological potential areas. You know, we want it to extend the full spectrum of what is meant by that.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have the TEKs. I don't know if you want to put some sort of notice on that, you know, as identified by the TEKs.
Yeah. Tag me on that one. I'll action that one. I'll have a look at the Heritage Act and pull it in and give some
Yeah,
suggested
same here.
wording.
Okay, so I'll make that a test action item. So that'll be looking up the definitions of the heritage site and
Suggest
maybe creating, yeah, suggest wording for the definition of TEK values as well, maybe? Are we
Or
gonna be adding that
I'll
in here?
I'll include under heritage, I'll see, yeah, potentially both, but
Cultural.
I'll just, yeah, work on a definition for the heritage so that it encompasses. the
I haven't even
spectrum
finished
of-
reading that list, so it might include cultural information too. Okay. Let's see. All right, enacting a land law respecting family homes, matrimonial interests on Missanabie Cree First Nation land. Enacting a land law respecting the rate and criteria for the payment of fees or rent for Missanabie Cree First Nation.
Like rent control, etc.
Yeah,
Tiny grammatical thing, but shouldn't it say in respect of instead of respect? Oh, wait, now, enacting a land code respecting the.
We'll let the
See-
legal team
It can
figure
be done
that part
both.
out.
Yeah, that's fine.
enacting a land law respecting the rights and procedures of community expropriation. Respecting any, does anyone have does everyone know what expropriation is?
Getting kicked out.
Well, I mean,
Well, it's kind of, I believe
Oh.
it's,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it means like extracting of the land, right?
yes, it's not, yeah, it's the transfer of land from one to another.
Right.
Yes.
so basically
If
you.
if I can just give it, oh, sorry, David. If I can just give an example of expropriation is down here in the city, if the TTC, the transit company, decides they need to build on someone's property, they have the right to go in and expropriate that land, that house or property for their own use.
That's right. Thank
Perfect
you,
description.
Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne.
Mhm.
So if we think about cultural, is it not the same thing when cultural expropriation, or is it appropriation? I'm just looking for a clarification in that definition.
Expropriation, cultural appropriation is when you're taking the culture of another person and exploiting it for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah. Respecting any other matter, land law, or class of law that council by resolution declares to be subject to this section. So this is just a list of when council is required to call a meeting for members. So this last part basically makes it so that chief and council can add anything to this list that they feel appropriate. Everything else is just kind of going to be. Is there anything, any comments or problems that anyone has with it, with this part?
Just leave me on the way.
No, she's freaking attacking each other. The other one's got her strangled.
Where did they get? My
Okay.
cats are going crazy, beating each other up here.
No. My
They
cat was
play
running
real
around crazy.
hard, play super hard, but they play.
Oh, yeah. We hear it every night. We hear them running through all three.
So
Okay.
for 14.2, the black is what was there originally. No quorum or minimum level of participation is required at a meeting of members. And I had a problem with that because like if no member shows up to a meeting of members and it's just council there, then they can pretty much do whatever they want. So I wanted to say like quorum of membership shall be at least one person should show up
Yeah,
from the general membership to the meeting, right?
Yeah, or it's a do-over.
Right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Makes sense. It's perfect. That's
that's my edit in the blue there. So quorum
Yeah.
of membership shall be at least one member present at any meeting of members. If there's no quorum of membership, then meeting shall be adjourned and rescheduled for a later time.
And you just put the number there, one number, but that could be, we could come up with,
But what
you know.
what if the member is a bias, a partner of somebody on council?
That-
So this
that's
is something
why I'm
else to be
saying a
wary
certain
of,
amount.
right? Because if it's just like, honey, we don't even have one member, we need to pass this through. Can you just let it off your phone, get out of the car for half an hour, attend this meeting?
But the
Right.
thing with the meetings of members is it's not necessarily that they're going to be approving or disapproving. It's more of an information approach, right? Where in fact, like the emergency land orders, if there's an emergency land law that has to be created, they can't necessarily hold a meeting of members and expect that. And that's one of the cruxes we have to work with, right? There may be something like once there's a dump built solely for Missanabie Cree Reserve, they want to extend it by 10 feet, and they put the notice out to the community, and the community's like, yeah, we just don't care. Like, it's the dump, nothing else is within, such a big buffer of the area. So, that may not be an issue that
Well,
the
they
community
do
members
do
feel they need to put in on. So when it comes to these laws, it's not necessarily that the members don't ratify every law that's created. That's what the resolutions are. But the meetings of members allows an opportunity for those that have concerns about issues to come and speak to council for reconsideration on this issue. Very much similar to the way that municipal planning is, where you have a council meeting and they're addressing a specific issue within the community, right? What ends up happening there is, yeah, members are able to come. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a say, but they may bring up points for reconsideration that council has to go back to the table and maybe, look at it more. So, I mean, by having at least one member there, it's great, but I'm leery that that could cause things not to go through, like an emergency order.
Yeah.
If it's an
I
emergency
see.
order and the rest of the community is like, do it, but they don't show up, then they're stalling the process, and therefore council doesn't have the autonomy to make that law just because nobody showed up.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Council has.
And if ultimately it's just a recommendation, like you say, or yeah, I agree with what Sharina's saying.
But that's covered in 8.3, the emergency laws, where it says you don't need a meeting of members. Council can just get together and pass the law under 8.3. And then that law gets reviewed every 28 days. This is talking about specifically about these land laws that was in 14.1.
Yeah, but what if one of those is an emergency order based on 14.1?
If it's emergency, then it's 8.2. It's not 14.1, and then they don't need a meeting of members, and then no quorum required.
What about the hypothetical situation though? Going back to Sharina's point, is it's not an emergency. It's some small, or maybe not small, but it's not an emergency, and yet you can never get membership there. Nobody shows up, and it's
like, for instance, maybe it's the rate and criteria. Okay, can we scroll back to 14.1? Okay, so within 14.1, we have to have a meeting respecting the rate and criteria for payment of fees or rent. So maybe council wants to raise the rent by $5. They've already put it out there in the newsletter, and nobody shows up to this meeting because no one really cares about the $5 a year increase. So does that stall the entire process? They can't go ahead and do it. Maybe they're doing it for a financial reason that we're unaware of. you know, I'm just curious, like how do we foresee this playing out when the time actually comes? Or it could be the criteria, you know.
Maybe add another condition to that, that says, you know, after 3 attempts or something like that.
Yeah, or it could be even in respect to a home. Perhaps there's a home that's had maybe a shift has happened and the home is no longer livable, and council wants to take over that plot of land because they've already moved the family somewhere else, and they want to demolish the house. You know, so then they're trying to make a ruling based on, you know, what do we do in this situation? So then they try to make a law that if a house is deemed unlivable, council has the autonomy to demolish the home. And then they hold a meeting of members and nobody shows up.
You know, may I just say something? So our community is definitely dispersed differently. Historically, we have a different starting point than other First Nations. So we definitely find ourselves in a unique situation. And just this discussion alone, just because we've quite often ourselves seen nobody show up, it does demonstrate we're having a democratic problem. It's no one is to blame here, but it goes to show Missanabie Cree as a whole has some work to do in terms of doing this. You know, in terms of like having somewhat of a community member interest. So aside from that, maybe it's not just, maybe a way of avoiding this is like a hub coordinator who speaks on behalf of some of the members, just having somebody else there. So that way we're just keeping that democratic approach more open again. And I understand it just might be a dump fee or a $5 raised rate. First of all, none of that the material should be making a Fairfax without somewhat of a breakdown, right? So there should be at some level, some notice that involves membership. It doesn't necessarily have to be just one member, but maybe we utilize the tools that we currently have, which is our hubs, to speak on behalf of some of the communities, because I don't see a hub breakdown from here on into the future, because we're always going to have dispersed members. So it's an effective tool.
Guaranteed. And that's the other crux too, right? There may be things happening on reserve that many of the members in different geographical locations aren't really concerned about at all. And we will get a lot of attendees from Toronto or Thunder Bay or even now Saskatchewan. Like, we have members finally reaching out to us that we haven't heard from. I've been hunting for them since 2019 per capita, and they a whole family just resurfaced.
Yeah.
But you know, they're all living where they are and they have no desire to come back to reserve, so these things don't affect them. So we can't always count on those members to be in attendance at these meetings.
Well, I also have to like just addressing 14.2 here and the proposed adding a member for quorum. There are already, or should be, other avenues towards making sure that membership is being consulted for like creation of laws and whatnot. I would be my opinion. It'd be my opinion that this is kind of redundant in a way and unnecessary. Like being worried about having because if there's a major law being proposed and put forward, it does have to be like it does have to have membership approval or input.
So that's what I'm saying. Is this just considered a regular meeting or a meeting of some sort of vote to say yes or no to something? If this is just a general meeting, then it doesn't matter who's there or not. The meeting is going to be, is the meeting, whether it be recorded and it could be looked at later. Are they actually, you know what I mean? It doesn't specify that at all.
So, well, when it says meeting of members, that means specifically this type of meeting of members, community meeting of members. Right here.
Yeah,
so it is meant specifically for talking about or discussing business or like, you know, law or changes that would go on. You know, it's not just a presentation. It's like we have to talk about this kind of deal.
And it's not even necessarily a meeting where there's a vote taking place. It could just be.
That's what I mean. That's why I was kind of bringing that up. If it's not like, then there's no, it doesn't really matter.
So yeah, we could even take it out entirely. I mean,
Yeah,
be,
like the
you know,
quorum of it is, it's just a meeting that's happening and we're gonna put out the notice for the meeting, just like it, you know, all above everything else. It just seems like it's just a redundant type extra.
Yeah, because if something were to happen that was inappropriate, I'm sure there's other avenues that'll follow up with that.
There's probably an appeal process or something like
Mhm.
that somewhere
Mm.
in this document, I would assume. Most of them will have an appeal process.
oh yeah. Yeah, we just haven't gotten to that section yet, so yeah, might as well just strike this whole section out.
Or put a big question mark there and we can come back, but maybe we could look at one of the other first name or why they have it there. Maybe they have another reasoning as to why it's there, and maybe that could help us too with maybe keeping it there or literally removing it. Like maybe they just had an idea, you know, previous that we just, or, you know, can't think of why it's there.
This might not necessarily be the right part in terms of the framework, but I believe this is a good opportunity to also discuss some of the procedure that happens at council meetings are on camera, off camera. Now, I haven't seen anything in terms of vocabulary in this framework that determines, you know, what's available for membership in the democratic process versus what is specifically going to remain off camera as per chief and council's current procedures and how they work. So that should just be something
Yeah, the
explored from
in-camera,
here on out.
out-of-camera items are discussed within the chief and council policy, and it identifies what items are to be in camera and out of camera.
So that should make its way here, and we should have a linkage to that aspect at some point in this document.
So I'm not sure. I don't think that there was much past 14.2, or maybe there was the community approvals.
Yep. So, yeah. All right, so community approval, 15 point, oh wait, so yeah, we already discussed that to death. That's good. 15.1, community approval shall be obtained for the following: any master land use plan, any new grant or deposition of an interest or license in any Missanabie Cree First Nation land, exceeding a term of 35 or 10 or 15 years.
I just suggested 10 or 15 just because I think 35 seems like a long time, but if that's standard, like I'm not sure what's standard in these sort of things. I just think 35 years is a long time.
From what I read, 35, 50, and 75 years are pretty standard.
Okay.
The reason
it kind of depends on what it is, though.
The reason those high numbers were looked at is, as I've seen on Batch 1 First Nation or Rankin, a lot of it, they're looking at these decisions are made generationally as a family executing on something over their lifetime. And then this helps protect, you know, the linkages to their immediate family for inheritances and so forth. But this could also be applied in terms of business. Let's say somebody has the only potato license business, right? And they're the only person that's allowed to grow potatoes on Missanabie. I know I'm exaggerating, but in terms of a business principle, if somebody in the next generation has an interest and they find impedance in that, this is where I could see Dave's looking at shorter time periods. So possibly that could be structured into, I'm not sure the definitions or another part, but I could see why Dave's looking at shorter time periods. But I do recognize why they're using such big numbers here.
Are we able to just delete the numbers and not have a number and just state the original term?
Well, I think the number actually,
ident-
it's specifically like when it comes to community approval shall be obtained for any new grant or deposition that's exceeding 35 years. So the number is kind of important there. Because if it were an interest that was for 30 years, you wouldn't have to bring it for community approval.
Or an interest that's say like 6 months and that gets renewed every 2 years or whatever. Do we really want to have a number of meetings for those licenses? Like, no, they don't need to be. but like for 35 years, like that's what I'm saying, like 10 or 15, so that like, let's say we have family X that wants to get into logging and MCFN gives them the license to do that. And then it just, they roll generation to generation, and you have that one family that's locked into that and not allowing anybody else to break in. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm suggesting a shorter term, right? But
Yeah. Well, it also depends like what community approval means.
mhm.
Like, is that a community ratification process? Because if it is, you wouldn't want it as lower numbers because getting a ratification is a large process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want them high, but not so low that you're doing it and it's bogging down the process, right? So that's, I was musing as I was looking over this thing. If 35 years is the standard, then you know we can go with that. That's fine. I didn't know the 30. I got scared at
Yeah.
the 35.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I,
it's like,
yeah.
go ahead.
And then if we're also talking about things like logging, like to get back into the forestry, like, you know, trees
yeah,
don't
I
grow
seen
back in 5
18.
years.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the grant or new grant or dispossession of an interest exceeding 35 years. Grant or disposition of interest of any land that extends the original term by 35 years.
So the
Or
first one is
renewal, sorry, renewal, not new. Yeah. Any grant or disposition of any non-renewable natural resource exceeding a term of 5 years. So
that would be like mining claims.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not forestry.
No.
Any deletion of a heritage site. Any volunteer exchange of Missanabie Cree First Nation land. And any other matter, land law or class of law that council by resolution declares to be subject to this section.
Okay.
So I guess my first question is, what does community approval mean? Like, is that a resolution or just a
This
vote?
This would be like well, if it requires the approval, then it would need to be the vote. So like at the meetings at the
Ratification.
AGMs are the special meetings as warranted. You know, because if somebody comes in midway through the year, say in January, and says, oh, I want to start a mining claim, you know, we can't wait until the AGM in August to make that decision. So they can call a special meeting, do it by Zoom or whatever they can to get that community approval to say like, yes, the community assents to you mining on our territory.
That's actually something I'll bring up with Cassandra as well.
Okay.
Is
And so is that always, it has to be like 50 plus 1% then? You know?
Yeah, that's my question is that what that
Because
means?
then that creates to make, you know, I don't know,
Is that
big
not
number.
discussed in the next?
That's a big number.
Yes, but these are also big decisions here.
And I think the 50%
I
plus
think.
one written in the land code says 50% plus one of the participating members, not the total membership.
Yes.
So whatever number of votes that we get, if 50% plus one agree, then that will be considered community approval. I think that's mentioned in the next section.
Okay, that's where I was getting at. Thanks.
Okay. So is there any other comments about this particular section here or 15.1? 15.2, utility permits accepted. So community approval is not required for an easement, right-of-way, or permit granted by council for utilities, including telecommunications, water, electricity, natural gas, sewer services, and ancillary services.
Pretty simple stuff. If they
Yep.
want to put in a hydro line, they shouldn't need community approval for that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
No.
No.
My only thinking is, what if it's traversing or trespassing within their an individual member's property? But
Then that's a problem between the two members, basically.
yeah,
They
That would
would
fall
have,
under,
it's not a
Yeah.
community issue. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
they would have,
and-
okay, this is my property. No, I'm not gonna let you put your line through here. Okay, well, then we need to figure something out. And then they gotta figure something out.
and then that's either the expropriation process or they
Yeah.
can go through another process for that.
Exactly, nothing to do with us for community or that's your neighbor, right? So you gotta get along with your neighbor and come to agreements.
That's right.
Mhm. Method of voting. So 15.3, community approval shall be obtained by one or more of the following methods: establishing polling locations, a show of hands, mail-in ballots, alternative voting methods such as electronic and telephone voting, or any other method outlined in voting policies.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Yep,
Does,
covers pretty much everything.
covers, yeah.
Because I'm sure the chief and council already has their policies, so we don't want to infringe on those.
Mhm. I don't know if I had any comments, it would be if there should already be a methodology, because you have chiefs and councils and those have to be voted in. I would literally just copy and paste what is already being done into here, because it should be the same.
Yeah.
We're gonna look into that.
Yeah.
Okay, 15.4, approval by majority. A matter shall be considered approved if the majority of 50% plus one of participating eligible voters cast a vote in favor of the matter.
So that's the key there, the participating eligible voters. So whoever votes, all of those people, 50% plus one. It's not 50% plus one of the membership or the eligible voters.
Yeah.
And that way that'll prevent any sort of like delays. You know, if only 3 people vote, then that's how many votes we got.
Yep. Okay. Increased threshold. So 15.5, despite 14.4, council may, by resolution prior to a vote, do either or both of the following: establish a percentage of eligible voters who must participate in the vote in order for the result to be binding. Require that a percentage greater than 50% of participating eligible voters must approve the matter in order to obtain community approval.
Just edit for B would be 50% plus one.
Well, it's
Just because in the previous
Yeah.
one, we said that it was 50% plus one to be,
yes, but that's talking like this is talking about the percentage itself up here,
okay.
50%. Oops.
Yeah.
crud. Hold on.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So you could create like a 60% plus one or
Okay.
an 80% plus one. That's just to change the 50% portion of it.
Okay.
Or this other one is basically, it kind of says the same thing.
Well, this is the
Well, to-
actual percentage of the eligible voter pool, right?
Yes.
So we need to get X number of actual votes in order for this to be valid.
Mhm. Yes. It says, yeah, okay.
So
Establishing a percentage of eligible voters who must participate in the vote in order for the vote to be binding. I know it says increase threshold, but couldn't this potentially make it so that you could make it 5% of the eligible voters have to vote? You know what I mean?
Yeah, what it's saying is this, trying to address that council might have to increase that threshold because of something that's very, very important. If community membership is not responding via all the ways we've outlined in the previous sections to notify members, we realize that this is maybe something is such importance that we need a bigger share. And this is why council would say we need to increase this to at least 10% of our membership because it's going to have long lasting effect and We need to, it kind of increases the encouragement required on voting on something. So it's a useful tool if something very important needs to be addressed.
So what I meant for section A here is, I know this says increased threshold, but A here, couldn't that decrease the threshold?
Well, no, because, okay, so let's go back. Approval by majority. It's the participating eligible voters. So let's say in whatever matter, they get a vote and only 10 members submit the vote, right?
Mhm.
Well, then for the next issue, council can put in a motion to say, okay, we need at least 10% of our eligible voters. So we need at least 40 votes. Let's say if it's 400 eligible voters, we need at least 40 votes for this to be considered valid, right?
Mhm.
Whereas in the previous one, it could be, like I said, only 2 or 3 people could vote, and then that's what's deciding. I think that's what the spirit of this whole thing is. I'm not sure if there
Yeah.
might be a better way to word it.
There might be a bit of language in terms of 15.5A, where it's instead of just establish a percentage, establish a greater percentage, an increased percentage, a higher
Or
percentage.
maybe
A
adding
baseline.
not less than 50% or something.
You
Or-
can, I mean, it's, I guess, how do you say, inherent in the way it's written, that
Mhm.
that's what that means, because it says you start with, the majority is 50% plus 1, and the next is increased threshold. But if you want, just for, it's not gonna hurt anything.
Like, I'm just wondering, is that a good idea overall, though? Because the way I'm thinking about this is to establish a percentage. It doesn't say to establish a percentage that's higher than, you could be
Except
lower
for by
than.
the title
Yes.
is,
The
yeah.
title insinuates that we're looking for greater already by the word
Yeah.
increased.
Okay. Right. I'm good with it either way.
Mhm.
Any other comments or
Just
what the
just
section?
very wordy and yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah. It's just trying to get that concept in when you're
Mhm.
trying to understand it a bit.
Okay, so ratification votes, section 16.
I think
Um,
we should probably draw, I mean, how much further do we have for this part? I think we should be considering drawing it to a close for our next.
we are almost done here.
Okay.
Right here. Hopefully. Okay, so community approval by ratification vote. 16.6, community approval by ratification vote shall be obtained for the amendment to this land code. So if we want to make any major amendments, it'll have to be ratified again.
Just those amendments, not the whole land code.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's a fundamental law. I think the community should have a say in if we're trying to.
I believe there was another section talking about other types of small changes that doesn't affect, like it's not considered an amendment because it doesn't change the fundamental concepts.
Yeah.
Exceptions, 16.2, a community approval by ratification vote is not required for an amendment to the description of land of this land code. Revisions to this land code made pursuant to section 47, which we haven't gotten to yet. I do have a little writing thing here about what 14.1 is. So revisions made pursuant to section 47 include ratification vote is not required for to change the substance. Wait, hold on. Yeah, so we don't have to do a community approval process if you are amending the description of the land.
That's it. That's in there because of further treaty land entitlement, right? Expansion of the lands.
Yes, and if new land gets put in, you don't have to do an entire community approval just to add the wording to this new description of land. Reference in.
Clause renumbering.
Yeah, so amending clauses.
Just your basic like housekeeping stuff for the
Yeah.
like, clarification and
Yeah, it's more editing graphical and changing small things, but doesn't change anything major at all. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and I think E could raise issues, you know, you change language and meaning gets changed, but I'm sure that there's process laid out for a kind of resolution process in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, minor improvements, but not major. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Amendment 2 or renewal of the individual agreement. So these exceptions, 16.2, is there any comments or anything about that section?
I mean, pretty straightforward.
Ratification process, 16.3, any ratification vote required under this land code may be conducted in a similar manner as Missanabie Cree First Nation community ratification process, which was used to ratify this land code. We do not have a community ratification process yet. But working with Natalie and what's already been put into place, we'll be creating that in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 16.4. Oh, wait, is there any other comments about this piece? 16.3. Okay, moving forward, 16.4. A matter shall be considered approved if a majority of 50% plus one of participating eligible voters cast a vote in favor of the matter. It's pretty straightforward.
So
Increasing the threshold.
Before, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So increased threshold. 16.5, notwithstanding 16.4, council may, by resolution prior to a vote, do either or both of the following, which is establishing a percentage of eligible voters who must participate in the vote in order for the vote result to be binding, or require that a percentage greater than 50% of participating eligible voters must approve the matter in order to obtain community approval. So same as the other section there. Is there any comments about this?
Yeah.
All right. Policies.
Was someone assigned this section?
Yes. Pam and I were.
Okay, you
and
didn't have any
Pam-
changes? other
Not
than-
a whole lot. Added Missanabie Cree First Nation. I added this little blurb here just for our
Right,
when
understanding.
yes.
Okay,
I don't know, it was all pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
So 16.6 for greater certainty, council may make land laws or policies respecting to meeting of members, community consultations, community approvals, ratification votes, and any other matter that council by resolution declares to be subject to part 3 of this.
16.6 is empowers chief and council just to make those changes through
Yeah.
BCR,
Mhm.
which I know will make Sharina happy.
Well, that's all of the little changes that aren't in here. Okay, and is there any other comments? Anything that should be added to this?
No, it looks good.
All right, and that brings us to the end of part 3. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes,
So
it's coming more clear. It's becoming more clear and you know, more concise and understandable just with the little bit of you know, what we all worked on today, which was a lot of work.
Yes. Hold on a second.
Yes, good work. We're working well.
We should split up the next part. So there's section 16, expropriation. So it has 10 clauses. Voluntary, or section 17, voluntary exchange of Missanabie Cree First Nation land.
Could you scroll down to it so I don't have to open it?
Oh, I don't have it in here at all.
Oh, aren't
No,
we in the
sorry.
Google Doc?
Yes, but the Google Doc doesn't have all the parts.
Oh, I've got to
Yeah, see,
resend that to the
that's-
lawyers. Okay, I was under the assumption it did.
No.
Okay, thanks for that. That's a good catch at the end, because I'll resend to the lawyers then the template. I'll have to. Why is it not included? It should be.
Because, good question.
Yeah, that way
So
we're not.
the document we're looking at right now was a document that David had started several
Okay.
meetings ago. And
Okay.
he had already done a lot of the editing up to part like 3 here, actually. So we're just kind of adding in parts at this point.
Yeah, just marry in the entire template, if you will, please, because then, okay.
Yes, I think one of the reasons why I wasn't doing that to begin with was the numbers on the different sections change because David's land code, he was using, I can't remember the name of the First Nation.
One of
Right.
the West Coast.
The one that-
Light
yeah.
10.
Yeah. And the numbering is off. That was about it. So yeah, I will definitely add in the rest of the parts. It'll just be based on the blank or the demo land code. Okay, so 16, 17. And that's it. So let me see if I can bring this up on screen here.
So part 4 begins with the expropriation.
Yeah.
Okay. And transfers of land. Okay.
I'm sorry if I have to walk around, but I have arthritis and it's acting up right now.
Yeah, no
Totally
worries.
understand. I've had to do it a few times too.
That's why I drink this stuff.
I thought you were
tonic
gonna say
water.
that's why I drink.
Well, no,
Where is it?
tonic water has a bit of,
Mm,
oh God, I can't remember what it's called.
no.
Quinine in it, and it takes away arthritis pains.
Well, that's good to know, because
Yeah.
I'm starting
So-
to get that here and there. My hips.
Schweppes is the best one. I tried them all. Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta
Okay.
stand up. Ouch.
Okay, hold on a second here.
Higher sugar though, Pam. Try to get the diet one.
This one here,
It's high. I checked one time the calories, compared it with a regular pop, and it was higher.
yeah, well, this is the only one that works on me.
Oh, okay. It's too bad
And I
Make 'em-
don't have diabetes, so I'm okay.
you're okay that way.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, just it hurts. Just some days it gets really bad, and today's one of them.
Okay, so technically part 4 only has 2 sections, quite a few clauses in each section. So who do we have here that's going to be doing the working portion here?
Me.
David.
Yeah, I am. Ty.
Tess, Ty.
David.
Yeah.
Pam and you.
David.
And I would, I would have, I would think that Natalie would be drawn into that now as well.
Natalie? Oh, wait. Oh, darn it. Where? Shoot.
How many pages are we looking at? Is there harm in saying all of us look at all of it?
No, not at all.
I know we were divvying
It's like
divvying
1,
it up,
2, 3.
but now that we're getting our things in gear and the wheels
4.5
turning,
pages.
I don't know what others think of that, or do we want to still split it up, 2 working groups, like 2?
No, is it easier for everyone to just know which portions to focus on, or shall we just look at all of them together?
I think for this part here, it would make more sense to not break it up into groups, but just we should all just take some time over the next couple of weeks to look through this part, see if there's things we want to edit. Again, stick to your colors. just so we know who's editing, or if I can figure out how to do that suggested edits thing that Tess had mentioned earlier, I'll try to figure that out. Just because like this thing is so wordy, and I don't think breaking it up would do it any justice.
Yeah.
I think it all needs to be taken in as one big piece for each of us. So
Yeah,
I agree.
There's a lot of writing here.
yeah, so I think it makes more sense to just don't assign anything for this. We'll just take a look at it as we can over the next couple of weeks and suggest our edits, and then we'll come back and review it as a group.
Yeah, and like for Joanne, are you reviewing, or are you just like we could always, so Michelle's been working with Pam, like Ty could work with Joanne and I could work with Natalie, like we could do pairs too if that's preferred, if you find reviewing independently isn't working for you.
I'm quite willing to help out with any editing. My only concern is would it be considered a conflict sitting on council?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah,
So,
it's probably best
yeah.
just to have you here then as your role.
I personally have a very good open discussion with both, with all Brad and David outside of work here as well. So I can see
Okay.
us bridging communication and continuing a discussion, and obviously Michelle being my colleague as a complete go-to if I have any questions, and I can help filter that. So
Right on. Okay.
Okay. Yep, that sounds good. So we'll just all take a good look at that and make any appropriate changes.
Are you gonna do a color scheme while we have us here?
Yes, that's a good idea.
The only person missing, Natalie opted out of the meeting just before we got this going, so she'll have to be apprised
So-
of the changes and so forth.
Right,
Our
you don't need to do a color change if you're working in Google Docs and you're doing the suggested edits. It labels you. So I'm Dawn Couture all through. You'll see where I've made edits and it identifies me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it may even color code us. I don't know. Well, I think Michelle did a suggested change. It looked like it was the same color, but still it identifies you when you're.
It's pretty clear who did what on there, and it's not difficult to start it. I could show you if you need help.
Not a problem. I talked to Pam on the phone too, so if she has any problems with that, we can work with it over the phone or.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. no problem.
I'm just learning all this.
I think we all are.
Yep.
As we go.
It's all,
Absolutely.
with the new computer, it does things that I'm going, what the heck's going on?
Yeah,
You're learning a computer.
we'll spend some time on the phone, Pam, and
Okay, that sounds great, thank you. And Michelle, you've been helping me too, so thank you.
Yep, you can reach out anytime. You know that.
I know, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm going to catch the noon hour news. So take
All right.
care. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Take care.
I guess I could wrap up the. Hold on.
for now, and then come back to it in a couple weeks.
Excellent work, everyone. Jim McGuetch.
McWitch.
Thank you.
Gwetch for all your inputs.
How you doing over there, Ross? You keeping up?
Yes, for the most part.
Right on.
Awesome. So is that it? Are we